Okay, so I want to set up this, this building that we're showing here in plan, and I have that in a PDF file, and I want to bring that into Revit, and using a fairly basic template. And so I know I mentioned in the program that we'll look at setting up your own templates, but we'll probably do that at the end of this project. So for now, if you haven't already set up your own template, just use one of the default templates. On the main menu, you can go to New, click on the sub option, choose Project, and then, well, I'll ask you, which template would you use here? Yes, exactly. Always architectural. If you're not sure, always use architectural. If you use construction, you're asking for trouble, and the same with the others, even though they're not as bad. And okay, so you can also, if on this welcome screen you have these links, you can always click on those. So they're architectural template. And I'll show you what to watch out for. It's easy to make a mistake and click on the wrong thing there. And it's a lot of work to transfer your work into the right file afterwards if you don't choose the right one. So it's really worth just making sure doubly that you do have the right starting point and you've begun with the right template. So over here on the left, notice that it has ground floor. If you see level 1 there, you know that you've begun with the wrong template. Also, if these symbols look a bit large, or if you notice that measurements are coming up in inches, again, you know then you've begun with the wrong template. So just keep an eye out for those things. You always want to see ground floor. That's usually a good sign you've got the architectural template. And so then I'll switch back to my PDF file, because, like I was saying before, I want to use this image as the basis for the limits that I want to establish for this building. I won't start drawing the wall straight away, but I definitely want to know how big what I want to draw is going to be. So you might know that you can export individual image files from Acrobat. That's an option if you don't have Photoshop. But if you have Photoshop, it's much easier to open the PDF file with that. So if you don't know, you can open PDF files using Photoshop. And so here you can see we're on page 9 of 12. That's all I need to know. So I'm going to go to Open on the menu in Photoshop, and then find that file. And choose the page I want. So again, it's page 9. Normally you don't need to change any options over here, but just be aware that you have a resolution there. It's set to 300 by default, that's fine. Okay, so there we are. So that's a really easy way of getting something out of a PDF file and converting it into another format. Also, I can rotate the image here. It's probably easier than doing it in Revit. So I can go image rotation, and we'll just go 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay, so notice that north there is pointing up and to the left, but it's close enough to vertical, or pointing upwards. Sorry. And most importantly, we've got the plan at right angles. So sometimes you'll be told that north should always be vertical, but that's really only for engineering and survey type drawings. Even surveys, they tend to orient them like this. So it's okay to have north off at a slight angle if it means you can have your plan at right angles. So the walls, in other words, in your plan at right angles, or horizontal and vertical. So that's the way we want it to come into Revit. I'm going to save as, and I'll save it as a JPEG. If you're not going to use it for a presentation board or something like that later on, JPEG is fine. And now, sorry, I was a bit slack there. I didn't give a name. I should have put a name in, so I'll just do that again. And so we'll call this Myrtle Street. Myrtle, is that how it's spelled? Yep. Well, we don't know what level it is. Let's call it plan for now. And it looks like all the plans are going to be identical. You're not really too worried about what's inside because you're going to change it anyway, I suppose, so it's fine. Okay, so now back into Revit. We're going to do something that's not essential, but I just like to do it always with floor plans. When I'm going to bring in something like an image, I like to duplicate them. So if you're not used to doing this, it's really worth trying. When you right click on any floor plan, or most other views you can do this as well. So right click on the name, and you can go to duplicate view, and if you're not sure which option to use the middle one, duplicate with detailing. Won't make much difference here. The first option would actually be the same, but just if you're not sure, use that one. And then I'm going to right click on that new name, so it's got ground floor copy 1, and straight away go to rename, and we'll call it ground floor with plan image, or any other meaningful name, so you know this is the one that's going to have that image inserted. And now on the insert tab, I'll go to image, and there again find my file. So there it is, Myrtle Street plan, open, and click anywhere to place. Okay, so we've got that in Revit, but how do we know the size? Well, we don't really, but we know what size it should be because we've got these dimensions there. So we know that from this corner here to all the way over here should be 28,550. So with that image selected, I'm going to click on the scale tool and then click to place a base point. I'm just going to zoom in to get that as close to the corner as I can, and then bring it over and line it up with the end of this wall. So we're just going to imagine where that would project. Maybe zooming in will make it even closer. And then I'm going to move it back to the left slightly, just so that, because I know this has got to scale down, so that's, you can see they're making it smaller. But instead of clicking a point there, I'm going to type in the size I want, which is 28550. Enter. So now that should be the right size, or close enough to it, but I'm going to check with the tape measure this other dimension we've got here. So just measuring across there, 48551, that's close enough. A mil out, I mean most builders don't build that accurately anyway, so that's fine. Believe it or not, I had some builders on one of my sites this morning, and they were measuring much more accurately than that. They had their amazing spinning laser, forgotten what they're called, that projects a laser level throughout the site, and yeah, they're amazingly accurate. But even so, they were measuring off that with a tape measure, so from there on it wouldn't have been so accurate. So you can see here, this one now is 28509, which isn't as close, but maybe if I try measuring again, it will be a closer number. So let's try there, 28527, close enough. And again, just for one final check, I can measure off this scale bar, and it is 4985. Again, close enough, 15 mil off, it's fine. So I'm just going to drag the image now into the centre of the view, and then I'm basing that on these elevation views. So these 4 compass points that you have all around your floor plan views, I'm sure you're used to seeing those in each of your floor plans, of course your elevations. And so now that I've positioned that image roughly in the centre, I know that when I draw the building I should be able to see it in those elevation views. And also I've got the cross section running through it, so again when I start drawing I'll see my building in the section view as well. So I'm going to pin that in the modify panel. You can see because I've got the image selected, Now I've got the option there to pin, which means it'll be locked. So even if I try to move it now, it won't go anywhere. And then to help me set this building out, especially on other levels, I can go and draw some reference planes. I'm just going to save the file before I go too far with that though, so we'll call it Myrtle St. And then back onto the architecture tab. I'm sure you're used to using the reference plane tool, but I'll just show you one more time. At the end there you have the work plane panel, and then you'll find ref plane, which is obviously reference plane. And it's up to you if you want to use the inside face or the outside face of your walls, but I think for a project like this it's probably easier to use the outside face. So I'm going to simply try and guess where the centre of this line would be. It would be just in from the edge of that black line. So remember, these lines all have a thickness. So there you can see it's gone pretty close to the centre of the dimension. That's good. Now, we've got a figured dimension there, remember, 28550. So I'm going to go and draw my next reference plane over here and bring it down and make sure it's perfectly vertical. I can stretch that up as well. But then you can see there I've got a number that's different. So I can type in, of course, and I've measured to the corner there. That's fine. That's actually where we'll need one as well. So even though we've got a wall there at an angle, a really good tip I can give you with Revit is to make a vertical reference plane, and I'll show you why in a second when we look at the elevation. Yep, sure. Pretty much, yeah. If you get from AutoCAD, then it's even faster because you can just draw straight onto the AutoCAD lines. But if it's an image, yeah, it's good to put these in, because if we just draw straight over the image with walls, then we'll end up with all sorts of odd numbers. So the reference planes should help with that. So I'm going to copy this reference plane across now. You could try to use offset, but notice the offset tool won't work with reference planes. If you want to offset reference planes, there's a way, but maybe I'll show you that later. So often a good way to duplicate reference planes is just to use the copy tool instead. So if you select the reference planes, go to copy, and I'm going to pick it up on that reference plane somewhere, bring it across, and then place it on that wall edge again. Now notice it's not giving me a dimension, so if that happens you can always just deselect it and then try selecting it again, and it's better. So there you can see it's now 3660. We can try out another number there, so maybe even, well, I don't want to go to 3700, let's try 3650. There, it's off the wall. I mean, these are real estate drawings, so they're probably not all that accurate anyway. So you might think about making it that measurement, maybe 3670. Doing it in 10mm increments is usually good. So just try and think that way, because as you draw your walls in later, if you have round numbers, then it's easier to work with. So just makes your life easier. Okay, so I'll go and put some other reference planes in going across now. So again, starting with a baseline here. And then remember the next one, we've got a figured dimension, but of course this time they've, again typical real estate, they've gone from the inside. So let's try maybe measuring the wall thickness and work backwards from there. So it's, what have they done? 286, well let's say there are 270 walls, and then they've done 10mm render either side. So 290, That makes sense. And so 8,500 plus 290 is what, 9080, isn't it? I think so. We'll find out in a second. So I'm going to copy. We'll see. I think it's 9080, but I'll have a look. So 9080. Yeah. Okay, so slightly off, but yeah, close enough. And again, a round number. So then I'll, before I do any diagonal lines, show you the elevation. So east, west, north and south, we can see those reference planes. And I wanted to show you that because if you drew a diagonal reference plane for that wall at the back, you wouldn't see it in your south elevation. So just to prove that to you, I'll delete this reference plane here. So I've just got the diagonal one there. Oh yes, yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, the walls will come up in all the views. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so you can see this one to show you a diagonal reference plane. If we look in the south elevation, notice how we've got this one, which is, I'll select it so you can see, this plane here, but we don't know where the building finishes. So it's over here somewhere, but we don't know, because it's projecting at an angle. So it only shows things that are cut, not things that are cut at an angle. So I'll just undo, and it'll bring back the plane. Okay, so again, now that I've got this plane, it's got to be perpendicular to the view. And it's just one of those things with Revit, reference planes. Funny like that? Well, it's probably the only way they can work, otherwise they would just show up in too many views. So what I'm doing now in the elevation views is stretching these levels out. So I'll just undo to show you that. So if I select any level, notice we get the padlock symbol at the end that shows us they're locked together. And that's a good thing. Now I can use this open circle and stretch that out to the right, and I know when I draw my building that the levels will be outside of it. I'm going to also stretch this end out, because it might not be obvious, but if you look in your north elevation, you realise that's a mirror image of your south elevation. So notice how this has come out. Just bring it back and you'll see, if I go to south, notice how that's a bit shorter. So this is the end that has the tag in the north elevation. If I go to the south, this end here has the tag, and if I was in north and I adjusted the other end there, let's just do it, I'll bring that out, and notice how this has come out. So when you view things like levels in the mirror image or the opposite elevation, then it's showing you the same view of that level, but in a mirror view. So it's the same with east and west. So here I can bring this in a little bit, and I'll go to west, bring the other one in. And again, it's just good to get on top of those so that when you start drawing the building, they're going to be useful views. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the plan views that we have, so you can see essentially how many stories we've got. We don't need to use these floor plates because you're going to demolish everything that's inside anyway, if there is anything there. So here we've got basically ground floor, first floor, second floor, and then don't forget you'll need a level for the roof as well. So we've got ground floor and level 1, and I need to go now to the level tool on the architecture tab. So let's go to level, and then go left to right so that my tag goes on the same side as the levels I've already got. So that's just a rule of thumb with Revit. You don't have to go left to right, but if you go right to left, your tags will go the opposite way. And when you flip them, you've got to flip them in every view. So it's just one of those things people tend to get used to with Revit. Try to go left to right, it'll just save you a bit of time later. And with that level that I've just made, I've pressed escape so that I can select it again. And I'll change the height there to 4,000 using the dimension there, or I can use the level there and make that 8,000 so that it's the same as the height level 1 is above ground floor. And if you can keep your level heights the same, it'll again make your life easier when you do certain things later in Revit. They don't have to be the same, so if in reality they are different, you can always change them. But if they can be equal, it is easier. So now I just need to go back and use the level tool one more time, and again going left to right, and right away I'm going to rename this one and call it roof. And do you know what to say when it asks you to rename views? Yes. Always yes. I don't even know why they give you this option, because you can disable it later, and if you say no, what it'll do is, instead of having roof there in the floor plan, it'll keep that as level 3 in your floor plans, which you probably don't want. So I'm going to say yes, and notice how now it says roof over here, and for the ceiling plan as well. Yeah, normally yes, but there's a lot of things actually where you say no, like attaching, things like that you don't always want to attach. Okay, so then you can see the reference planes don't run the full length through the building. So I'll just show you what that'll do. If I go to my level 2 floor plan, notice I can't see them. So I can go back to the elevations. Let's go to start with east, and just select and stretch. Do the same on the other side. So I'll show you now, if I go to my level 2 floor plan, I can see those two reference planes. So now I'll go to south or north, doesn't matter, and I'll stretch all of those. And this will give me a really good opportunity to show you one of these little quirks with Revit. So notice how on my ground floor I can see that diagonal reference plane. But remember, I couldn't see that reference plane in the elevation views. So when I go to these upper levels, I've stretched the others that I could see in the elevation, but the diagonal one's not there. So what do I do if I want to see that? Well, you're actually out of luck. There is a way you can make a view that's perpendicular to that reference plane. Sorry? That won't show in all the views, but you could. Model lines are okay, but also they'll get in the way in 3D views. So, but like I said, you can make a view perpendicular if you really need to adjust the reference plane. But that's a lot of work. So another way, just do it again. So now if I delete that reference plane and draw a new one, again, just one of the quirks you encounter with Revit. Okay, so I've got that there for the back of the building, and because I already have these levels, now that reference plane will go all the way through my existing levels. And that's why I try to encourage people to go through this process when they're setting things up. If you establish not necessarily all of your levels, but at least the bottom and the top levels of your buildings, then Revit knows as you make subsequent objects to project them all the way through when it needs to, and it will just make your life easier. So sections are another example. So here you'll see this section is only showing a couple of levels, and I need to stretch that up to see everything. But if I make a new section going, well, you probably need a section going the other way. So we've got this section here. Now notice it's not very deep because Revit doesn't know, even though I've got reference planes, it doesn't know that I'm going to have walls out there. I can stretch it if I want to. But it does know, because I've made levels, that the view should be higher. Oh, there's made a lie of me. Okay, it should be higher. Once we've got walls in there, it would be bigger, but anyhow, we can always stretch that up at this stage. Once we get some walls in, then the section views will go all the way through as well. So how are we going for time? I think that was pretty quick. So maybe I'll just very quickly draw in some rough walls to get you started with that, but I'll do more on this later. So I'm going to use the wall tool, and just point out one very simple thing. When you create walls in Revit, try to keep them as simple as you can, especially if they're existing walls. So don't put in too much information. You've got a double brick wall here, and it probably is a double brick wall. We know, looking at the image there, it almost definitely would be double brick. That's not it. That's it. Okay, so it's brickwork, and it's not old enough to be solid brickwork, so that would be cavity brickwork. And so that means it would be a 270 wall with render either side, except actually one side isn't rendered, but we're going to say it is. So that means it's probably 290, like I was saying. But I'm not going to use this wall to start with. I'm going to use one of the generic walls, because you don't want to show the cavity and all that extra detail for existing walls. You just want to show them as black solid walls in plan. So I'm just going to use generic 200mm, edit type, duplicate. Have you been doing this to make your walls? I'm sure you have, yeah. I'm going to call it existing 290mm wall. I'm going to change the coarse scale fill colour there to black. Okay, so that's one of the options people skip past. Often you go straight to materials and ignore that one, but that's really useful. So I'm just going to click OK. And then trace my reference planes, not the plan. And sorry, before I click anywhere, I'm going to change the location line there to finish face exterior, the height to roof, and I'm going to draw, well, I can draw from anywhere. I'll show you what happens if you draw the wrong way. So I'll draw from this intersection here, and notice that the wall's going onto the wrong side. So do you know what to do when that happens? No, see, that would put the wall, it would look right, but it still wouldn't be right, because the interior face would be on the outside of the building. You can, yes, that's right, space. So by default, it puts the walls the right way when you draw clockwise, but if you draw anti-clockwise, space will flip it, and that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to draw across to here, and stop there, because we've got this angled corner, and that's again a good opportunity to set things out using a reference plane and make the measurements a little bit more accurate if they need to be. So I've selected that so that we can see any measurements that come up. I'm not getting too many, so I'm going to draw an intersecting reference plane, just to see again if it's a round number, and that is, so that's 650, but I can always change that if I need to and then move this across. So you all know if it's an isosceles triangle, in other words if that's 45, then this should also be 650. So again, just try to keep those round numbers. And now I can continue drawing my wall. I don't need to set those options again, they're all set for me. So just tracing, again space to flip. So we can come straight down to join that wall there, and then again, before I do this part, put in a reference plane for that. Now you don't need to do a reference plane for every single wall, just the main, especially exterior walls. It really will help you later on. So again here we've got 3328, which is not a very good number to work with, so let's make that 3320. That's what we'll have to do. And again, I'll draw my wall by snapping to the reference plane instead of the image. Okay, so that's a bit difficult to see now, but if I go to my other original ground floor plan, I can see it now without the image, and that's why I duplicated it in the first place. So I can have one with the image, one without. I can of course use trim, join these two walls together. Now, because of the way I've drawn the walls, if I decide that wasn't thick enough, and looking at this, it's maybe not, again, I wouldn't trust a real estate image. I've seen how quickly those guys draw them. If you haven't seen them, you've probably seen them come around. Lots of people, even if they're, if you're renting or whatever, sometimes they'll come over and draw while they're there. They literally will do it in the morning. They probably do actually half a dozen in the morning. They're so quick. They just go around with a laser measure, and the people I've seen do them, especially on a project that I worked on where they came around to do the drawings to sell, they drew them in the van on the way from, between one project and the next, and then had them uploaded to the website from the van. Yeah, that's how quick they are. So they don't spend a lot of time making it all super accurate. So there you can see 290 is what it measures at, but maybe it would work better if it's 3 or maybe even more. It's up to you. I probably wouldn't worry too much about that, but just to show you quickly, if we want to change that wall thickness, it's very easy to just select all of the walls, turn off everything except walls, and we know that there is a 300mm wall there which I can use just so you can see that the thickness will go in the right direction if you get the location line in the right place. But of course this wall is the generic one, so I would again duplicate, just simply so I can change that coarse scale fill colour to black. Possibly the material later as well. So in the 3D view, very basic model, but you can see how quickly you can set that up. And then later on we'll look at bringing in the, well, at least referencing the elevation view. We probably won't insert that into Revit, but also the satellite image. So make sure you know how to get a satellite view. Just using Google Maps at first is fine. Have any of you used 6 Maps? Okay, it's another one that's run by state government. But Google Maps is pretty good. It's more accurate, but it doesn't have as much information on it. So they're both good. I use both together. Okay, so make sure you know how to get that, and we'll have a look at that either next week or the week after.